Hi, my name's Mike. I'm the owner of this RAV4 Prime SE, and I've been a Mitsubishi driver since 2009, which was about over a decade. The reason I switched to the RAV4 Prime was because of the battery capacity. So this has an 18.1 kilowatt hour capacity, which gets about 45, 50 miles of range depending how you drive. I get about 45. The Outlander PHEV at that point did not have that range. It had about 26. So I switched to the RAV4 Prime because it got me the additional range needed for my round trip commute, which when I got a new job increased from about 20 miles to about 45 miles. At that time, the Outlander plug-in hybrid didn't have the capacity. It's reported that the new 2023 model will get me that plus some. So I'm interested in switching to the 2023 plug-in hybrid version of the Outlander for the increased battery capacity. So I'm on the reservation list for a new 2023 Outlander plug-in hybrid, and the dealership knew I had a RAV4 Prime, so they asked if I'd be willing to tell about my experience with the RAV4 Prime. So here we are at the RAV4 Prime, and it is a nice vehicle, but let's talk about some of the differences and the reason why I'm looking to switch. So some of the first things you'll notice is, as you look in, I do have the SE trim, which comes in the cloth seats. I would prefer leather seats, but currently the availability of Primes just didn't allow for that. It was a beggars can't be choosers situation. The armrest and even the elbow room in the RAV4 Prime is the simulated leather, but a plastic material, whereas in the Outlander, it appears like it's going to be a leather armrest. And of course they have their upgraded leather, and then their regular standard trim like I have here in the SE will also have leather in it. This car feels just a bit shorter, a bit smaller than even when you think about the body style of the Outlander. The elbow room, the shoulder room's a bit larger in that Outlander, and the steering wheel is even a bit larger. So just in general, the Outlander feels more like an SUV than it does the zippy crossover, and even the exterior styling is a bit more aggressive in the Outlander than what you see with this Toyota RAV4 Prime. And what you notice about the RAV4 Prime is my back seat doesn't move at all. And what you don't see here is I have two young kids. They have car seats. When you get those into the back seat, there isn't much room left for them. And especially not being able to slide that back seat forwards or backwards limits you on the amount of room your kids have. The other thing is this is simply a 60-40 split back seat. The Outlander, assuming it's going to emulate the 22 body style, is going to have a middle section that folds down. So if you're needing to do some construction projects around the house, in my case, and especially here in Minnesota, hockey sticks, you will have a middle section that actually folds down, so you don't have to do your 60-40 and pick which one you're going to fold. So when it comes to charging, there are three different types. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is standard 120 volt, typically called a trickle charge, and you get about 2 or 3 miles of range per hour. And so in a car like the Prime, that could take you about 20, 24 hours to get a full charge. Likely not going to happen. You're going to plug it in overnight, you'll get about 16, 20 miles of range. Level 2 charging can range anywhere, it depends on your voltage and amperage. In my home setup, I just have a standard 240 volt, 16 amp circuit. I get about 10 miles of range per hour. So it takes me about 2.5, 3 hours to get this to a full charge. To level 3 charging, remember that's that DC fast charging. There's not a ton of infrastructure out there quite yet, but it will be something we have in the future. And to get a full charge on a plug-in hybrid like this, 45, 50 miles of range, I mean, you could be talking 5, 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't take long. But that's assuming you even have one. The RAV4 Prime doesn't have one. And I was a previous 2018 PHEV owner of Outlander, and even then, it had level 2 and level 3 charging. And here on the Prime, all you get is the level 1, level 2. All right, so here we are at the trunk of the RAV4 Prime, and the first thing I noticed from switching from the Outlander plug-in hybrid, the older version, to this one is simply the trunk space. This trunk is a little bit shorter from the back seat. So again, you don't have that adjustable back row, but also slightly thinner. And so this space here is a little bit limiting compared to the old plug-in hybrid, and supposedly the new model, mimicking that 2022 regular Outlander body style, is a larger trunk opening and a larger trunk depth. So your cargo space is going to be much larger. So another thing that the RAV4 Prime has, and the Outlander does not have, is this spare tire. It's not a full-size spare tire, so just a regular one. The old Outlander plug-in hybrid had the tire repair kit, which actually I like better than having a spare tire. I like the extra trunk space over a potential spare tire that I may never use. The new plug-in hybrid, assuming it matches that 2022 regular body style, will have that third row seat. Again, not intended for a large-sized adult. Again, I have 2 young kids. They have a friend over, you've at least got some additional seating, making it a 7 capacity, caveated with kids. All right, so let's take a peek at the styling quickly. So the RAV4 Prime does have an aggressive, nice swooped front hood, but what you notice, it's relatively low and it feels more like a crossover. And so me being not a huge guy, but slightly larger, I like the idea of sitting up a little higher. A couple things that'll play into that is, assuming we mimic that 2022 Outlander body style, you're gonna be able to have the option for 20-inch wheels, where in the RAV4 Prime, the largest you can get is 19s. Some other things along those lines, the steering wheel being skinnier makes it feel more like a crossover than it does a true SUV, which in my opinion, that 2022 Outlander feels more like an SUV. Finally, in these Minnesota winters, where not only does it get cold, but we get a tremendous amount of snow, nice thing that even in the old Outlander plug-in hybrid, that super all-wheel control was substantially better than the Prime. It just seems that Mitsubishi has mastered that hybrid powertrain where they've got the ICE and the electric motors, whereas the RAV4 Prime, I noticed slipping, but then also wall braking, a little bit of competition between the true calipers, that physical braking versus the regen braking. Thanks for watching the video on the RAV4 Prime. I've been a White Bear Mitsubishi customer in the past, and I will certainly be one again.